TinkerCAD has a functionality called CodeBlocks, in which you can use block code to create 3D objects. Now, why is this useful? This is useful because in this example here, I created a pencil box. Now, if we printed this pencil box, 3D printed this out, and we realized we didn't like the size of this middle box, it would usually require moving these and then redesigning the box and the hole that cuts it out so that it can all fit and make changes. And as you get to more complicated designs, it gets harder and harder to make small changes. But with these code blocks, we can just go to the variable we created, the width of the box. If we want to change it to 65, or if we want to make the box taller, change the height to 95. We can simply make those changes, run the code blocks, and then we'll end up with the larger and taller box. And this is super helpful, especially when you get to more complicated designs. So this one, set a whole bunch of variables like the thickness, which we can change. So if we, for example, wanted to change this thickness to 5, we can run it again. Now you'll notice that once it loads, all these edges here have a thickness of 5 instead of 7. We set variables like the box dimensions, the cylinder dimensions, and the polygon dimensions. And then we pick what shapes on the left. So for example, we have a cylinder on the left now because it has a 1 there and the other ones have zeros. But if we wanted another square on the left, we could put a 1 here and a 0 there. We can change this in the middle as well. Say we wanted another polygon. We could do that. We can change any of these variables we want. We can change the text. And if we run that, we have now 2 polygons and a box based on the contents we add here. This is super useful because you can easily see what changes you can make and how it affects the direct structure. So how I did this particular example is I started by creating variables, then we created the text object and moved it into place based on the dimensions of the center object. We created a cylinder, created a square, then created a polygon. Then we had to put them into the correct places. So because in this code blocks, there's no if statement, that's why I use the variables that are set to 0 or 1. So you repeat cylinder middle times. Now this is either 0 if you have not a cylinder, or it's 1 if you have a cylinder in the middle. Same thing with all of these, which is why we have those variables at the start. And you'll copy that object and just leave it in the middle. And the same thing happens on the right and then on the left. And then this long statement here is the math to figure out, based on what's in the middle, how far it has to move off to the side. And that's how you can set these up. And then it copies that for the left. And then it groups all the objects and adds a copy of the text and then deletes the original objects. So we can actually slow down the speed and run the code. And there'll be black boxes through here that are showing what steps we go through as it's being created. So we're still setting all the variables. As you can see, the box move down. We'll create the text object and move it into place. Create the basic cylinder object based on the dimensions we input, and the square box, and the polygon. Then we're putting the objects that we pick in the locations we pick them. And then we're creating the group, and then we're deleting the original objects. And then we're left with a final design based on those inputs.